Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Novak, and this is Point of Reference. How appropriate that at a time Haverhill Community Television is celebrating its landmark 25th year on the air as a truly grassroots connection to the community, that we are also able to have a landmark guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick to the program. Welcome to Point of Reference, Governor Patrick.
Thank you very much.
If I may say, you've been touring the state, being able to share with your constituency your views on how to expand economic opportunity. You say by investing in education, innovation, and infrastructure.
Right.
If you could give us an example for people, particularly in the North Shore of the Merrimack Valley, what that means as far as education is concerned.
Well, for example, we're helping to restore some of the buildings at UMass Lowell or at Northern Essex Community College or Middlesex Community College, and in many cases the first new construction or refurbishment that's happened in 40 years. That's happening at a time when the enrollments are exploding because people are going back to school or are enrolling in further studies in order to prepare themselves for a profound change in our workforce and in our workplace, and get themselves ready for those occasions. So you look at something like advanced manufacturing, which has had a 7-fold increase during our administration over the previous administration, 50% faster growth than the national growth rate, but that's requiring a different set of manufacturing skills than a generation ago. And so creating those spaces at our community colleges and our public colleges and universities where people can get the skills for that, for those opportunities in the workforce is about how we, I think, steward our generational responsibility.
I understand that you also have some initiatives with regard to investment in places like Northern Essex Community College and even Haverhill High School relative to healthcare initiatives.
That's right. Northern Essex has an allied health program, nursing and other related health fields that they train in. Huge demand for that workforce, and in order to meet that demand, we have to have the facilities where the students can get those skills. So we're announcing today, as a matter of fact, some investments in Northern Essex, also in the engineering building at UMass Lowell, which I think is the first new building at UMass Lowell in 40 years. And then to other infrastructure examples, some work in Haverhill in the Merrimack Street area revitalization initiative, which has been underway for some time now, and we've been active in Haverhill for some time. And sometimes it's just about the public putting a little money in to make the street work, to make in terms of the congestion and so forth, or improve the lighting and so on, is enough to catalyze private investment in housing and commercial space and so on.
Is that what you're getting at when you talk about public-private investment going hand in hand?
That's exactly what I'm getting at. You know, I've spent most of my career not in the public sector, but in the private sector in business. And the way you get growth in business, and every business person of a business of any size will tell you, is not just about cutting regulation and taxes. We've done all that. That's a part of that formula. But it's about investment. It's how you invest now for future growth. And in many, many cases, the public is going to have to invest alongside business, doing the things the public is supposed to do around education and public infrastructure, so that private investment has that platform to encourage its growth.
How do you measure the success of those types of initiatives beyond being well-intended?
Well, I can tell you there are a lot of measures. We are #1 in America in student achievement right now, at or near the top in the world in math and science. We're #1 in America in economic competitiveness, in entrepreneurial activity, also veteran services, healthcare coverage, energy efficiency. You know, there are a whole host of third-party meaning arm's length analyses that are done about economic strength, and we continue to come at or near the top because we're very intentional about what we must do today to create the kind of environment that makes us stronger over time.
You are the governor of the entire state of Massachusetts, Governor Patrick, and we all know that. But when you take a look at the different regions that Massachusetts covers,
they're different.
Well, Metro West is not like Boston, and
Right.
Boston is not like the South Shore, and the South Shore is not like the Merrimack Valley.
Right.
The distinctions and variations that are in place there, one size certainly does not fit all. But are you looking at these specific initiatives in different regions to sort of balance that off?
Very, very much. So the overall growth strategy is, as I say, to invest in, you mentioned, in education, in innovation, and in infrastructure. Now, what shape that takes and what the nuances are very much region-specific. The infrastructure needs in, I will say, outside of Greater Boston are profound. And it's not to say that there aren't needs inside Greater Boston, but the way we went about the big dig for those 15 or 20 years was to, and the way we funded it, as important as that project is, was by starving infrastructure needs everywhere else. And that's why the list of, structurally deficient bridges and schools that need attention is so long, and why that tab is so high. And so we've been trying to turn that around by doing a lot of catch-up, frankly.
When we talk about the issue of the American dream, in one of your speeches most recently, you mentioned what the American dream is perceptively to people and how you need to keep that going. By definition, what do you understand that to mean relative to your constituency?
Well,
how do you ensure that?
I think the reason to care about the American dream is that it is the thing that separates us from every other nation in human history. We're just not organized the way countries are usually organized. We're not organized around geography or ethnicity or language or religion. We're organized around a handful of civic ideals. And we have defined those ideals over time and through struggle as freedom and equality and fair play. And opportunity is the essential element that makes those ideals real. It's the opportunity to advance yourself, to imagine a different way for yourself and your family, and then to reach for it. And it's not that government has to guarantee that to everybody, but as a society, we want the conditions that make it possible for people to imagine that different place for themselves and then practically to reach for it. Education has been critical in that journey, for me personally and for generations of Americans. And so as we think about the way the world is changing, about the new demands on the workforce and on citizens, how we modernize our education system so that we don't leave children behind is incredibly important. And we've taken a number of steps in that regard. Infrastructure, as unglamorous as it is, roads, rails, bridges, and the rest of it, broadband access, lab and library facilities, you may think of those as one-offs, but if you don't have a way to get to school, to get to that job safely, to get to commerce for that matter, then the whole thing breaks down. And so if you don't have those opportunities, then the American dream is just a dream. And so I think that what I've tried to do is talk about this strategy in very practical terms, but also connected to the why, because I think people in this line of work, frankly, are often caught up in the hows and not coming back to the values that underlie the choices we're making.
Governor, you had mentioned in one of your briefings the distinction or the difference between European education and how there's a risk of having American students fall behind. And that seems to have hit especially close to you in wanting to make sure that type of situation does not happen.
Well, we have a real challenge in America right now. As good as we're doing in this Commonwealth in coming out of recession, we're one of the first states in the country to have regained in number all the jobs we lost in the Great Recession. We've been growing since. We're number one on a host of those measures I mentioned before. But income equality in America is getting worse, not better. And measures of mobility are getting worse, not better. So that there are some European countries now where kids born at the bottom are more likely to make it to the top than in the United States. And yet, that's who we are. And to me, this comes right back to the why it's so important that we in government do what we can to invest alongside and indeed to stimulate private investment and growth so that opportunity expands.
The opportunity that you're talking about has to go hand in hand with the individual relative to their motivation.
Right.
And the opportunity that you're trying to present, you're trying to make attractive enough to provide that inducement.
That's
no?
exactly right. That's exactly right. And that, you know, there's no substitute for personal responsibility and drive and resilience and so forth. But you really do have to have the chance to exercise and to test those qualities as well. And while I don't think government can or should undertake to solve every problem in everybody's life, Frank, I do think government has a role to play in helping people help themselves. For a long time in this country, Americans got that. They got the notion that in any given time, we were supposed to make sacrifices and to strive in order to leave things better for those who come behind us. And I think we've been a little, as a nation, caught up in the here and now and the short term and how do I get mine, and not paying enough attention to our generational responsibility. And that is something I wanted to bring that was different to this job, and I've tried my very best to do so.
Governor Patrick, we appreciate your being able to be here this evening.
Thank you.
We have to conclude our discussion, but we hope to invite you back.
I hope you'll have me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Patrick.